welcome to the Uriah Jokes Podcast. The only podcast that is willing to give you a behind-the-scenes look of what it's like to be an open mic aspiring to be a working comedian in Los Angeles. And what I'm gonna do is share stories of the sorts of awkward situations I put myself in because I'm a poignant person who decides to share his thoughts without thinking about the ramifications of what those thoughts will implicate in terms of the laughter that will then happen based on the scenario. It doesn't matter whether or not it's an awkward scenario of me ordering a coffee and I forget what name to give them, or what happened yesterday is I went to a Flappers Comedy Club at a 5 o'clock open mic. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna book myself online. And I booked like 8 hours in advance. I'm like, okay, so I could get there. I could probably get that mic in real quick, wait a couple comedians, watch them, then skedaddle out the door. Skedaddle out the door, get the hell out of there. And it's like, whoa, it's a bunch of lunatics. I'm surrounded by lunatics, and I'm one of them. So I get to Flappers Comedy Club in Burbank after being rerouted like a million times because a dumpster was in the middle of the street, which turned out to be just someone's home, and they were in the middle of moving, so excuse me. But when I finally got there, I got there 15 minutes early, and people were hanging out outside where the room is, and the room is the Yoo-Hoo Room. It's a small comedy club room, and then there's the main room, where there's an audition that takes place, where the booker will book you on a show, and if you don't bring people, you will never be booked again. I'm talking about a bringer show, that's right. So I stumble in there, unbeknownst to me. How about that for a word? I know words. My name is Uriah, and I know words. Am I breaking out into one of those groups where it's just me? A doo-wop group? A doo-wop group, but he has no friends. His name is Uriah Westman. That's like a jingle for out-of-work doo-wop groups. Have you been part of a doo-wop group, and then they left you to do anything else? Then you might be eligible for compensation. No, where's my gavel? Oh, my gavel's on the floor. My gavel's on the floor. You're guilty. You're innocent. Look at that. Bit out of nowhere. A doo-wop. Oh, do. I promise never to sing again as long as you hit that like and subscribe button. So I get in there as I readjust myself in a chair with wheels on it. When you have a chair with wheels on it, you never know where you're going to sit. The chair has equal amount of control. Talk about some wheeling and dealing. I think that makes sense. I think it makes a lot of sense. So I immediately go in there, and I don't really notice that there's people with papers having a meeting, and I stumble in there. I'm like, hello, I'm here for the mic. And the guy's like, okay, can I ask you a question? When friends come to see you at a show, how much money do you think they're going to pay? And me, I talk about kind of my understanding, what I want to do. So there's a bunch of different types of shows that you start off as comedy, and a lot of them, most of them are just going to be open mics where you're paying $5 in LA. You pay $5 to do other jokes from other people that pay $5, and somehow everyone just is okay with it. What are you going to do? I'm like, maybe I'll start an open mic and not charge $5. But then I'm like, then I'm just spending 3 hours while other people tell a bunch of dick jokes. Or you could charge $5 if you say some of the cliche jokes like Tinder, porn, or dick. I'm tired of it. I don't want to hear those jokes anymore. They're boring. They're stale. Just like your material. So, I've heard 20 dick jokes at the 3 mics that I've been here. 3 mics, 20 dick jokes. They don't land. It's awkward and annoying. Stop doing them. Well, I'm not saying don't do them in terms of like free speech. You can say what you want. But what's your plan with that dick joke? Are you going to go on... You're going to go on Jimmy Fallon with that? You're going to run a late night set? Is that going to make you an original comedian and stand out? No, it's not. It's all about standing out as a comedian. And that's why it's called stand-up. You're standing up for the words that you hope for people to laugh in. Uriah, do you want to stand up for what you believe in? Well, I believe in a bunch of jokes. Necessarily, what politics do? I do a joke that I'm a bird when it comes to politics. I don't care about politics. So I said, it depends on the lineup. So I just went on a spiel for a couple minutes. I just went off. And they just let me talk for the whole thing. Again, unbeknownst to me, who these people are, which, for comedic and suspenseful effect, I'll let you guys know what that is in due time. In due time, he shall let you know exactly what is happening. Okay. So they're like, how much money would your friends pay to go see a show with you on? And I said, well, it depends on where I'm at the lineup. If I'm doing 5 minutes and it's a 3-hour-long show, I'm not going to invite them to it ever because they're going to see 5 minutes of me. Someone could bomb before me. I have a bad set, or then they watch a bunch of other comedians bomb, and then maybe there's like a guest spot of 10 minutes of a guy who's like, oh man, I don't even want to be the guest here. This is ridiculous. So essentially what I did there is then I said, if it's a bringer show, I'm not going to invite them at all. And what I didn't realize is that there's the 2 bookers there. Probably 3 bookers now that I realize it. And I'm shitting on their entire business model that they use for new comedians to get them to bring in friends with a promise of more stage time, which is exactly like a timeshare. Ooh, if you purchase these tickets now for this timeshare, you will get this stage time. And maybe in the future, if you're good enough, we will put you back on the stage time. But don't forget your friends for the Ponzi scheme of laughter that we have created in this land of opportunity we call open mic comedy in Los Angeles. So then I'm like, you know what? If it's $20, maybe I'll pay half of it. But typically I produce my own shows, so I look at it this way. And this is why I produce my own shows. Because I could get myself better stage time, and if there's no audience, the only person I can blame is myself, right? Because if the audience isn't there, it's because I didn't attract them. And that means I don't have a strong enough smell. But I do got a great smell for comedy. I got a sense of smell. And the sense of smell is you guys are like, Uriah, maybe you shouldn't be so poignant with your thoughts. That's understandable. That makes sense. So basically, I still am unaware of what's going on. I'm just thinking these people are hanging out for open mic. I didn't notice the person in the corner. So I'm like, what I typically do is if I'm going to be on a show, if it's free, I'll invite my friends. But really, if I have to bring like 5 people to a show, it's $20 each. That's $20, $40, $60, $80, $100. 2 drink minimum, you're looking at $250. So I'm like, hey, instead of my friends having to go pay that amount of money, I get myself a headliner, I get myself a feature, I get myself a host, find myself a venue, and I produce my own show, making my own stage time. So it's all on my own time. It's all for growing me as a comedian, as less of like trying to grow yourself through the intertwines of another comedy club. Which, when it comes to Flappers Comedy Club, it's not like the holy grail of comedy, but I'm also not shitting on the club. It's just, this is the way it is. And if comedians are meant to say what they feel and say what is on their head, and that's what I want to be. I don't want to be tiptoeing around, and then I realize, oh, I interrupted a meeting, and not only said what I think about bringer shows, which they do a lot of, and I've auditioned for Flappers twice, been passed both times. You're only supposed to audition once, but, stage time, whatever. And then I get put in the same room with 20 comics on it, and they're like, Uriah, what would you like your intro to be? It's like I'm in this small room with 6 people in it. Like, what do you want me to say? I produce my own shows, and I produce a show at a theater. And I produced a show at a theater, and now I'm here. We're all here. So the booker then, which I didn't realize was the booker, was like, very good, good. What was your name? And then I said my name, Uriah. Still unknowingly, no, I'm wearing a mask at this point too. So, I mean, there is also only like 2 comedians named Uriah, so. But it's all about leaving with people knowing who I am. They probably don't know who I am, and I proceeded to wait another 2 hours to finally get on. And it was not a bad mic. There was, the jokes were okay. So one person brought up porn, and then everyone decided to bring it up. It's like, that's how people tune you out. If people comment down below, it's like, okay, if I'm starting comedy or doing anything like that, what would be tips? My biggest tip would be to be different. So if you go to an open mic, you don't even plan on going up, and just hear what all the comedians are doing and the similarities between that, of trying to get the headline of the jokes of what's going on in Ukraine, which they don't have the writing expertise to pull off a joke like that. And like, why would you try to pull off a joke like that when you can't? And then go ahead and don't do those jokes. So if anyone's in the audience, they're just already going to just feel, oh, this person's saying something different. They're talking different. So that could be vulnerable, sharing about something in your life, or making dumb jokes like I do. And then that's where you just be different and stand out from the crowd. So immediately you have the open micers telling the dick jokes, the porn jokes, I don't like women, which is, if you go to a certain open mics past 11 p.m., it basically turns into a men's rights group, if you ask me. And then I try to do my material, and then they'll make fun of me for trying to do material. Oh, well, look at here, Uriah's trying to do material at an open mic. Ha ha ha. So it's interesting because I'm still in it, and I can talk it right now, but I'm not going to go up there comedians and be like, this is ridiculous. But I'm also there as like a booker for my shows and be like, if I see someone interesting, I'll put them on my show. And this is what's fun, is because that's why I listen, to the detriment of my own soul. My patience is wearing thin about, I just don't know how many more dick jokes I can listen to. But let's fuel up with the coffee. It was fantastic. I actually turned the coffee pot on without a cup underneath it today. And then the coffee went all over the place. And I cleaned it up. And that's what I kind of think that like another comedian has to do sometimes in like these really longer shows. We have a mixed ability where the coffee went all over the place, and now the next person, me, has to clean it up without them understanding the ramifications of their set. And then that's like, just I look at comedy in such a different way. Like maybe not a different way, but I understand it more, and I've quickly realized what not to do in stand-up. And the biggest thing I want to do is be shown as someone who does jokes, different jokes all the time at mics. I want to be seen as someone who works hard and is always writing. It's continuing to kind of blow my mind how little amount of writing I see at these open mics with comedians. It really, for someone who always, I sit down with my notepad and I just write. I'll listen to the jokes, and I'll just keep writing and figuring out, not just figure out what my set's going to be, but seeing about new tags and all this kind of stuff. But we're all here and we're all paying $5. Why are we not like treating this like a study hall and throwing jokes back and forth? But it's this weird, different sort of thing where, I mean, a lot of these people don't have really good jokes, but we're all here right now. We're all on the same level. And I was at an open mic, so this is a different open mic. So, I mean, maybe before we get to that, let's finish up the flappers thing. So yeah, afterwards, people came in there, and I'm like, I think I just interrupted a meeting. And this person's like, yeah, I was staying clear of that. And then that person said that. I'm like, oh, geez, I messed up. I did it. They're going to remember me as a guy who interrupted a meeting and then said what was on his mind without who was listening. And then that person went on stage, and they never did comedy before. So immediately I'm like, wow, if I didn't hear their set or see their set, I would have been like, yeah, I ruined that opportunity at Flappers. But also then I realized she didn't even know what's going on. It's all ridiculousness. And what I like to do, and this might be some more rants, more talking. I actually do have jokes that I'm about to tell, but maybe I'll save these for a different episode. So that's why, too, it's like having like the crappy open micers also then allows people with material and who try a lot and their experience to be shown like, oh, well, okay, there's something with this guy. So you also need those crappy comedians. So it's an interesting sort of ecosystem that is the open mic scene. So I get to this mic. It's in a tent. And there's a clip of my stand-up that I put on my shorts. And everyone was just complaining about why they're there. Oh, it's cold. Oh, I shouldn't be here. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, guys, we all paid $5 here. Let's just do the sets. And people went up there and just like talked about how this is dumb and stupid. And then I went up there. I didn't care. I don't care. Open mics, I don't necessarily care if people are laughing at my jokes. I'm not really, and this is something that's come recently within the last year, where I'm not necessarily going to an open mic to try a joke out to see if it works on other comedians. I'm doing it so I could say it out loud into a microphone to work on the timing, to work on the cadence of it, to hopefully find the tag, and all that kind of stuff. And then if I feel confident enough in that, regardless of whether or not people laugh at the joke at open mic, then I'll perform it at like my Brassbury show or another actual show that I'm on. So so a lot of it, most of it's just the confidence I already have in my material, regardless of whether or not I have tried at a mic. So I get up there and I do my spiel, and it's great, and it was fun. People barely laughed. I just had fun with the environment about paying $5 in a tent, and it was just more about just getting more and more comfortable with the microphone and doing comedy in uncomfortable ways, which doing comedy in a tent is incredibly uncomfortable, I'll tell you that. But then they're like, oh, we have a feature comedian. He's going to be doing 12 minutes. And the feature comedian was cold, so he wrapped himself in a blanket and decided to say, oh, I'm just going to riff, and basically just said setup, then another setup, then another, for 12 minutes. He got all this extra time because I guess he's been doing comedy long or whatever. He's a feature comedian at open mic. But then he acting like he's like hot shit. It's like, dude, we're all still here. We're all at the same mic. We're all the same thing. There's just regardless of whether or not I respect their comedian's material, I will always respect them. And of course, the stage. You may not think that there's actually comedian. A lot of times I think that they just assume, oh, there's no point to say anything. Well, one thing, you never know who's in the audience. You never know who's going to listen. You never know what joke you could come out of nowhere. But instead, he decided to say a premise after premise after premise and just talk about riffing the whole time and said nothing funny for 12 minutes. And for me, that's annoying because I would at least use the 12 minutes. But it's this odd way. And what I also think is I don't even think he was really riffing. I think he was just saying he was riffing, and then it's especially with, I've already been to LA like a bunch of times, and like it's not necessarily a new thing for me to go through all of this, but there's a sense of exhaustion that will come out of like seeing people squander opportunities that I wish I had. So it's a weird thing. It's like, I don't like, that should have been me, ho ho. But it's like it's all about taking and making something from nothing. If you're at a mic, that means absolutely nothing. You gotta get something out of it, whether it's a video, a joke, or just maybe like you see someone else who's funny and then you get a friendship out of it. Or everything should be like, how do I use what I'm doing now to move forward? And that this is like a piece of advice that I've learned through just experiencing it is, I'm in this situation now. What can I do in this current situation at this open mic to get myself out of this faster than anyone else and be in front of audiences? It's easy to just like kind of like sit around and scroll through Instagram and just, oh, he's on that show, oh no. But comedy is just a weird thing. Everyone takes different routes. It could take me 10 years before I'm getting like a 12-minute feature spot in a tent. We're paying $5 to tell jokes in a tent. in Santa Monica in the wind where I'm being heckled by a flap of the tent. But then I got a video out of it, and it got a few thousand clicks and likes on my Instagram. So it's all a process, and I don't like to put like developed bits and stuff, which I kind of actually did on my last on my Brasper set. But there's like what comedy this idea of you're burning your material. Don't put that material out. You're burning it, and then you can't tell that joke again. It's like, yes, but also people need to figure out and find out who I am. If I just save all my material for maybe an opportunity, I'm going to use that in a special. But then what if that opportunity never comes? It's about taking what I have now and using that for the future. Like, I have a small following and people that like and understand my humor, which is amazing because now I can do like longer form podcasts like this. Doing this is I can accidentally stumble on a bit. It's all about creating this muscle in the brain to just get used to saying things out loud and then making sure it's coherent enough where someone on the other end, you listening to it, are like, this is interesting. I want to know more about this guy. I want to know about comedy. I want to know about the ways he thinks about comedy because I think it's very interesting. Well, one thing, how other people get in comedy, that's very interesting to me, which is why I want to start interviewing other comedians. But I think the whole concept, the whole idea that people are willing to pay the $5, are willing to invite their friends, that this is like all this stuff, it's very interesting to me because especially when it comes to the entertainment industry in LA, a lot of it's like, I want to get famous. Oh, what's the next thing? Oh, I want to get in this movie, everything. Me, all I want is to be able to make just enough amount of money to do this full time. That's it. That's my goal. And if I happen to get on a late night, do a set, that's all great too. Of course, those are goals. I've talked about like being on the Jay Leno show, and that's why I watched growing up, is a lot of Jay Leno. So that's basically some of my thoughts of today. Oh my God, I've winded myself. Uriah had so many thoughts today that he not only appeared out of touch with his breathing, but he was out of breath at all. And there you go. Longer form podcast. This is going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to put the video stuff, all the stuff. I'm going to put music, of course, put the music behind it.